Hi, this is Nouvelle, and I just want to talk with you a little bit about mergers, acquisitions, and some of the things in between. So you might say, for some people, it might say, okay, mergers and acquisitions, it sounds really fancy, but what is that? What is it really? And so really what we're talking about, these are three different things. A merger is different than an acquisition, which is different than a sale of the company. And so when you're talking about a merger, you're talking about two companies coming together as one. There's going to be some level of continuity, either between management or personnel, and so that's what a merger is. They're coming together. Then you have an acquisition where it's you're acquiring all of that company, but you're not putting two together, you're just taking on the other one all the way. So that's an acquisition. And sometimes you have to be careful because if those distinctions aren't clear, you can go into what's called a de facto merger, and there's additional liability that comes with that people may not realize. Third is the sale of a company. It just means you're the seller, you're ready to go, and you say, bye, here's the company, I'm all done, write me a check, please. So those are the three different distinctions. So now we talk about, if you focus on just one side, let's just say the merger side, and people might say, okay, well, I'm a small business. How does this help me? How is this area of any interest to me? Well, I'm really glad you asked because mergers can really help with regard to either growing your portfolio, increasing the revenue and cash flow by coming together in an area where there is a lot of synergy. So sometimes there are things called vertical mergers where there are pipelines or suppliers that complement your business really well. So for example, let's say you make a particular product and you distribute that out to people, but maybe you have a vendor that helps make a piece or part of that product. They're kind of considered part of the vertical chain of your business. You need them to make that part, you take it on, you create the rest of the product, and you distribute it. So if you do a vertical merger, it would be the coming together of your company and that company that makes the part. And so together, you're able to expand the portfolio, deepen your funds, and also reduce some of your costs. So that's an example of merger. Then you might say, okay, well, I get that, but what are, let's say, the top 5 things you should know when you are doing a merger or handling anything with regard to it? Successor liability. This is a big one. Even if you're buying a company and you're not doing a merger, you should still find out if there's any successor liability that's involved. But this is particularly important in a merger because when you have two companies that are coming together as one, this company that's coming in, let's say it's yours, you might say, oh, okay, cool, great, we're together, we're working on it really nicely. But then you find out that there are a lot of debts, liabilities, lawsuits, things that are going on with this company that you didn't know about. And that's really important to find out in the merger before you come together is what are the liabilities that you will be expected to take on as what is called successor liability as the person coming next. Next, number 2 is non-compete agreements. These are the agreements of your employees that says that they agree to not work with other competing companies. Will this merger cause any issues for those? Will those non-competes still be valid when you face the merger? Very important to ask some of these questions beforehand, so taking a look at those non-compete agreements. Third is de facto merger. So you might be coming together as a company, but you didn't realize that there's some additional liabilities that might come into play. So really looking carefully, is there a continuity of business, personnel, of management, of operations? Is everything that was happening in the old company still going to be going on in the new company? Because if so, there are important tax implications for some of that, as well as some liability and specific laws, whether you're in New York, Ohio, Florida, there are certain laws that will come into place. So you really want to make sure you're aware of that. Fourth is tax implications. You want to know what the tax implications are of that deal before you move forward, because if not, you can take on quite a bit of burden and not realize that you have done so. So discussing this through not only with your corporate lawyer, but also with your CPA, who has an intimate knowledge of your financials for the business, is absolutely crucial. So make sure you keep that in mind. And then lastly is your number 5, top 5 items, I would say, is a plan of merger. This is often something that's regulated at the state level. So as I mentioned, no matter what state you're in across the United States, or if it's New York or Ohio or Florida, wherever it is, oftentimes state law will dictate this. For example, Florida has specific laws as it concerns a plan of merger and making sure that plan is followed according to Florida statute. Okay, that's it. Just a little bite-sized chunk to talk a little bit about what some of these differences are and how they come into play. Take care, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'd love to help you.